As a courtesy to those in attendance, please place your phone on silence or vibrate. Thank you. I call the meeting to order. It is 9:02. We're going to have the prayer by Samuel Green Jr., the prayer chaplain today. And then, Ryan, you want to do the pledging? Sure. Ryan will pledge for us. Please stand.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to do the consent agenda first. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. We have the consideration of approving the July 18th minute meetings, and then we also have a third replat in Block 23 of Pauline Park, Section 13, a request for the approval of the third plat in that section. We are going to do any public comments on the third replat before we take a vote? There being none? Ryan made the motion. Travis second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. 6-0. Okay, let's move on to the regular agenda, subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for their approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. BP North Subdivision Section 1, public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a final plat for the SABP North Subdivision Section 1 and a variance from Chapter 10, Section 3.A.2 to allow for a 47-foot paving width in lieu of 64 feet for West 29th Street and Arterial Street. Jeff.
Morning, Commissioners. This is the San Angelo Bingo Partnership North Subdivision Section 1. Request for a subdivision plat and one variance from the road widening on West 29th Street today. It's in the Riverside neighborhood. It's 0.452 acres, and it's in Marty Self's district, single-member district number 2. This property is actually a reverse-shaped L like this that has basically two components. It's got a frontage on North Bryant Boulevard, which is occupied by Airgas. And then the south piece here, which they want to plat, is Julio's Burritos. And I understand Julio's wants to build a new restaurant on that location, which will trigger platting. The existing building, I believe, has been there for many decades and has been a Julio's, I think, for at least 10 years. So they want to upgrade their restaurant, have a seating area inside. The new building will trigger the plat. Staff recommendation today is to approve the final plat for SABP North Subdivision Section 1 and approve the variance request from Chapter 10, Section 3A2 to allow West 29th Street to remain with a 47-foot paving width and require a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the right-of-way of West 29th Street, subject to the 5 conditions of approval in your staff report. So staff basically broke this into 3 pieces. First is our rationale for approval of the plat. So we looked at the conformance with the city's comprehensive plan. Essentially, a neighborhood center designation allows a mix of different uses. This would continue the restaurant that's already been there, or just be a new building. Would provide additional eating opportunity for the residents. And as mentioned, the new sidewalk would enhance the walkability to the site, which is why we're requesting that. Also, we looked at the conformance with the intent of purpose statements in Chapter 2 of the ordinance for approving the plat. You've got direct frontage on West 29th Street. You're part of an existing commercial district already, and the new plat already basically recognizes an existing commercial property. So that would meet the statements in terms of guiding future growth in the city. Would prevent the scattering or premature subdivision. Would ensure the proper and efficient layout of the lots. The key thing here, as I mentioned, you've got essentially two different properties acting as one. This would plat the property for Julio's and then allow Airgas to develop to the north, which has a primary frontage on Bryant. Our rationale for approving the variance from the paving width on West 29th Street, we believe it wouldn't be detrimental to keep the paving width at 47 feet. Why? Because there's no potential safety hazards there, and there's already street curbs that have been installed. The Engineering Services Department agrees with us on that. The uniqueness, if you did make that extra 8.5 feet wide, you'd have a road that would basically swivel like that. That could cause stormwater issues with runoff, and also you'd have 2 unnecessary curbs in the road that could be dangerous for cars coming in and out. Our rationale for requesting a sidewalk on 29th Street, you've got improved connectivity in that area. The Engineering Services Department had mentioned to us plans for a future sidewalk on the south side between North Bryant Boulevard and Martin Luther King Drive. There's also an existing sidewalk on the southeast corner where the Walgreens Plaza is. The other reason we recommend the sidewalk here is the continuity factor. A lot of the industrial buildings to the west of the site, and also people driving to the other commercial buildings to the east, will use that sidewalk. A lot of the people from Hirschfield Steel, for example, cross through for lunch at Julio's, and that would just be continuing the future sidewalks in the area. So staff recommendation is to approve the final plat for SABP North Subdivision Section 1, approve the variance from Chapter 10, 3A2 to allow West 29th Street to remain with the 47-foot paving width, but to also require the 5-foot wide sidewalk along the right-of-way of West 29th Street, subject to the 5 conditions of approval in your staff report. I can read those out if you'd like.
Any questions? Sir, any public comment? There being none, do I hear a motion? All right, Ryan made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Sammy second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 6-0. Okay. Now we're going to go to the comprehensive plan and amendments and rezonings. The City Council has final authority for approval of comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. We're going to read both of them in at the same time. AVP 16-01 Backlund and Buck, public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of an amendment to the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan, aka Vision Plan, changing certain lands from the Neighborhood Center Future Land Use category to the Neighborhood Future Land Use category located along the east side of South Bishop Street between West Beauregard Avenue and West Harris Avenue on .14 acres. And then B, 716-05 Backlund and Buck, public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a zone change from the general commercial, heavy commercial, CGCH zoning district to the 2-family residential, RS2 zoning district, located along the east side of the South Bishop Street between West Beauregard Avenue and West Harris Avenue on .14 acres.
Permission to proceed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Good morning. For the record, David Stallworth, Principal Planner, and I'd like to introduce you to case number Z16-05 and VP 16-01 Backlund Buck, as written to the record by the Commission Chair. The area consists of .14 acres and is located at 14 South Bishop Street within single-member District Number 5, Lane Carter's district, and is also situated in the central neighborhood. Slide number 2 gives you an indication of the surrounding areas with respect to future land use designations. The area is highlighted in bold red. third slide gives you an idea of zoning patterns with the subject area being highlighted in bold orange. They're requesting both a vision plan amendment to neighborhood to support the associated zone change to RS2. The following slide gives you a perspective of the subject property. It contains a 2-story single-family residence. The next following slides give you an indication of the surrounding area and land use patterns. To the immediate south is tattoo parlor, commercial business. Across the street are vacant properties and also residential. And to the north is an extension of residential as well. On July 27th of this year, 20 notices were mailed out. An additional notice was mailed out on August 3rd in fulfillment of state requirements to an independent school district. We have received neither opposition or any support letters pursuant to that mail out. With respect to the rationale for approving the vision plan amendment, the following rationale is hereby offered. Proposed reclassification meets neighborhood goals 1 and 3 of the vision plan. With respect to land use, the little development opportunities are present under the current classification. It's historically been developed as residential, and in light of the changes that are proposed, there's going to be no permanent commercial displacement, which is anticipated. There's going to be no adverse impacts on the tax revenue or employment opportunities should either of these actions move forward. It's already a single-family residence, so therefore there's going to be no net gains or losses in housing stock. There's going to be no residential displacement, which is going to occur as a result of either action. And these proposed actions aren't going to result in additional infrastructure or CIPs or any compromise in levels of service. With respect to the zone change, again, the proposed zone change does meet goals 1 and 3. It is consistent with existing development patterns, so it is consistent with the zoning ordinance. It also is consistent with surrounding area as well. There's no adverse environmental impacts which are going to be anticipated. Proposed zone change will rectify a long-standing and an unsustainable inconsistency, in this case, a single-family residence within a commercial zone and a commercial future land use. And again, development patterns, it is consistent with patterns going to north between Beauregard and Houston Hart. With these things in mind, staff is recommending an approval of Vision Plan Amendment 1601, a request to change certain lands from neighborhood center to neighborhood future land use designation. In conjunction with the zone change case numbers 1605, a request for a zone change from the general commercial, heavy commercial designation to 2-family residential. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I just have one, David, and I'm full in favor of this, so don't misunderstand me, but are we not spot zoning by just doing this one little block?
Negative, sir, because the zoning patterns to the north, and let me indicate that for you.
Okay.
If you notice on the zoning map, to the immediate north of the property is RS2, so basically you're extending the same zoning land use patterns.
Okay.
You're notching out, so.
We're notching it out this way.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So what had happened in the past was, along Beauregard, back then, how they decided to zone, for all intents and purposes, they measured from the middle of Beauregard out. And it didn't matter at that time if it cut neighborhoods. They picked a corridor instead of going parcel by parcel. So today, we're a little bit more sophisticated. We can go on GIS and notch around individual ownership lines. Back then, it was just a linear line measured from the center of Beauregard out. So we're just trying to fix these folks that have split zoning literally running through the middle of their house.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any public comments? All right. There being none, do I have
Move to approve.
Okay, Mark made the motion.
Second.
Travis seconded. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. Okay. Number 3, conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. ACU 16-05, Verizon Wireless. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of conditional use to allow for a new 125-foot tall monopole telecommunications tower in the general commercial and heavy commercial CGCH zoning district located approximately on the southeast corner of the intersection of East Avenue D and Orient Street on .274 acres.
Yes, before I begin, I'd like to make sure that the proponent is here because I believe he said he would be. One moment. You're here? Okay. We will proceed then, with your permission. Okay. This is the case of the conditional use 1605 Verizon Wireless on .266 acres located in the southeast corner of the intersection of East Avenue D and Orient Street, with represented by Harry Thomas and single member District Number 3 in the Fort Concho neighborhood. Okay, we have the future land use map indicating that the subject property is completely in the commercial future land use area. And the zoning map indicates that the subject property is located in the general commercial, heavy commercial area of zoning, and you'll notice to the immediate north, it's light manufacturing. And we have some site photos in the cardinal directions. Here on the north, you'll see the pavilion owned by the city, and to the south, there's an open area. The rest is the remainder of the block with some commercial buildings to the south. And to the east, if you can see in the distance is Fort Concho. You can't really see it there, but it's also most of the block there is a vacant lot. To the west, you'll see a commercial building directly across the street. And here we have the site plan. And if you notice, starting on the right here, it's the entire block is the vacant lot here. And on this side, you'll notice on this chunk here, the lot 3A to the northwest is where the cell tower is located, and the even smaller area located inside there in this box is the leased area within lot 3A, and that's what we're talking about specifically. Okay, here are the elevation and a leased area layout. You'll notice here's the pole. It goes to a height of 125 feet. It's the design is a stealth monopole, meaning that the antennas are actually within the pole itself and not sticking out. And on the right side, you'll see a detailed site plan showing that there are 2 parking spaces in a paved approach with the actual cell tower area and the associated equipment. Here we have the notifications that were sent out. There were 6 sent out, 0 responses in favor, 1 in opposition. The starred area to the west is 1 opposition that was received. I believe you'll hear, or from that gentleman, if he is in the audience, because we did not get a specific reason for the opposition when we get to that point. And the rationale is as follows, that the impacts are minimized here because they're bordered on 3 sides by the general commercial and heavy commercial, with the northern part being light manufacturing. The pole is somewhat shorter than the original design. It was to be 150 feet. Now it's down to 125 feet. And the tower itself is 350 feet from the nearest residential area, the RM1 district to the east. The zoning ordinance says that there should be at least a minimum of 100 feet. In this case, it far exceeds that at 350 feet. It's consistent with the zoning ordinance. Telecommunication towers are allowed in the general commercial and heavy commercial areas with a conditional use. And it has the 2 parking spaces, and no other additional structures are proposed at this time. It's compatible with the surrounding uses. As I noted before, most of it's commercial in the area around it, and to the north it's light manufacturing. And it's not unusual to have cell towers in commercial and industrial areas due to the higher, denser amount of population and the need for cell tower coverage to be throughout the city. The effect on the natural environment is relatively small because there was not a lot of vegetation area. There's some trees to the west of the site, and there's no proposal to remove any of those trees. and there's no major increase in the impervious surface except for the parking areas and approach largely. The cell tower itself is not particularly attractive, but that's relatively small because it's not around a residential area. 5, community need. There are about 5 existing cell towers within a 1-mile radius. However, the cell tower needs are needed to provide telecommunications. You need to have somewhat of an overlap between towers throughout the city in order to not have calls drop out. 6, development patterns is high usage location. Comprehensive plan calls for the area to be commercial, overlapping towers for increased cell smartphone for emergency services to residential communities. And the staff recommendation is for approval of case CU05 for the conditional use to allow for a new 125-foot tall monopole cell tower in the general commercial and heavy commercial zoning, subject to 3 conditions of approval. And you can read those at your leisure. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Any questions? Okay, so we're going to finish the vote and everything? Okay, very good. Okay, any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, my name is Vince Hebinger, representing Verizon Wireless. I didn't know I was going to be here. I appreciate the as far as on time because the storms in Central Texas. I came from Austin. So I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way, if you don't mind. I'm going to just pass these out and go through this. I had a PowerPoint, Just for your information, the site's basically a capacity site. A lot of the things that are going on in the industry and wireless world, the last 5 or 6 years, we've been putting multiple antennas and increasing as much as we can on these structures to keep up with these. I mean, you're running so many apps nowadays. It's a totally different industry. So capacity site is what we call Hardeman Pass, the site we're talking about. It's going to offload some of the data and the phone calls and stuff like that that is going on a site to the east called Bell, and we'll go over that in a little bit. Also, for your information, Verizon has been putting a lot of emphasis in San Angelo. They've done 2 co-locations on existing structures. They've done 1 by right with an industrial zoning. It didn't have to come to this commission. So the 3 or 4 other sites they're working on, they're really putting a big emphasis on communication for the community needs in San Angelo, which probably is a good thing. We all know we can turn our phones on and see a couple of bars, but when I say capacity, I'll explain that in a little bit. If you turn to this location map, you can see it's just basically southwest of here. A little bit better location map on the next one. Staff mentioned where it was on Orient Street and Avenue D. The next picture is where the Verizon sites are. You can see where the yellow triangles sites are, and those represent the antennas in certain locations. And the red is the proposed Hardeman Pass site. The capacity from Bell to the west, I think it's on Fort McCavitt Road, is the one that's overloaded. It is currently overloaded, so we're having to download that data and voice and everything that's going on with the new site. That's why we have to get just about in the center of these 3 sites. First and foremost, we look for any vertical structures that we can go on. There was only 1 tower within the immediate area, and it was already full. The height wasn't working, and structurally it was inadequate. So we tried that one first. So now we're here asking for a CUP. The next picture is just a site location, and then the following picture is what I call these Doppler radar maps, are the coverage maps, and it shows where the dark green is, where the good coverage is, the light areas is where there will be gaps when we do this if we don't do the Hardeman Pass site. You can see how when you turn it off and on, the dark green comes on Hardeman Pass in that area. Going to the demand map, obviously the low bar scale is the demand area, and we're right in the middle of high demand for communication facilities for San Angelo. Real quickly, I want to show you these bar graphs showing the capacity on Bell. You can see where the capacity line is in red, and you can see the actual usage in blue exceeding the capacity at this current date. So there will be a gap if we don't put something in there. Data volume is on the left. RF power is because we share the power on the telephone, or the antennas themselves. So it is at a situation where it's overloaded right now. The next 2 or 3 things here, the stealth monopole that David mentioned is something that we wanted to do because it's close to Fort Concho and those things. It's not as noticeable as a standard monopole with antenna array. The disadvantage is it's very unlikely to be co-locatable, but you won't necessarily see it as much as you would see a standard tower or self-support or something like that. So the antennas are enclosed within these canisters in there, and we try to get at least 3 canisters. We'll leave 1 more for a co-location applicant open, but we put them inside, so you really don't see it as much as you see a normal tower. There is a picture, an example on the back, last picture of a stealth monopole. This is a little bit taller than 125, but it just kind of shows you how it blends in. It's like a flagpole without a flag. Finally, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. There's so many things going on with the industry. We'd love to educate you on that as well.
Any questions? No, sir. Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Okay. There being none, do I have a motion?
Go ahead, Sammy.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Sammy made the motion.
I'll second.
Mark seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. 6-0. Okay, we need to rewind just a little bit. Go back to the comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. Even though we took these together, we needed to vote on them separately. So, I think, Mark, you made the motion, so would you like to, let's start with A, the Backlund and Buck VP 16-01.
Move to approve that one.
Okay. Ryan seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, 6-0 on that one. Now we're going to go to the Z1605 Backlund and Buck.
So moved.
Okay, so let's do, Mark will make the motion, Ryan will second it. All in favor? Aye. All right, 6-0 on that too. That do is Rebecca? Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're to B, CU 1607 SABP, public hearing and consideration requested for approval of a conditional use to allow for retail sales and service restaurant as outlined in section 315.H in the light manufacturing zoning district located approximately 300 feet northwest of the intersection of North Bryant Boulevard and West 29th Street on .452 acres.
Planning Commissioners, this is the associated conditional use with the plat you all just approved, SABB. It's at the just about 300 feet northwest of North Bryant Boulevard and West 29th Street. So the future land use is neighborhood commercial, and the zoning is currently light manufacturing. So as I was mentioning, the Julio's restaurant that's there now is about under 800 square feet. It's just a kiosk essentially inside, so you drive around and you pick up your order, and there's really nowhere to sit. And so, subject to the new plat now that's been approved, they'll be able to expand that restaurant and make it much larger. They're proposing 76 seats inside, so an average of 4 per table, and that would accommodate them, as well as a new striped parking area around it as well. The zoning, light manufacturing, doesn't allow the restaurant without a new conditional use. Once they go to add the new building, it loses the previous status, and so this would essentially allow the restaurant there. These are some site photographs. As you can see, this is the existing Julio's. This is looking west towards Hirschfield Steel. What's interesting, this is an eclectic mix area of different uses. You've got a veterinarian clinic across the road. You've got the Walmart and Walgreens as you go east along 29th. And you've got some industrial as you go further west. But in theory, it really is in a commercial corridor already. This is looking south at the Saddlery Place and the veterinarian clinic. And as you go east, you've got Stripes on the north side and another restaurant, Chicken Express, which you can't quite see there to the southeast. The applicant has provided us with a conceptual site plan for their new development. They will have enough parking spaces on the site. That would be the new restaurant. Traffic would enter this way off of 29th, come around here, pick up their order, and leave the site. Also, with the approval of a new sidewalk, Hirschfield Steel or other customers in the area will be able to walk along the sidewalk area. This is just the floor plan they also provided showing the restaurant. As I mentioned, right now there's just a kiosk, so now you've got 76 seats and restrooms, etc. The elevations that were provided as well. 8 notices were mailed out on August 3rd. We still haven't received any opposition or in favor responses. Staff rationale is to approve the conditional use based on the following 6 criteria. We believe there shouldn't be any adverse impacts. It's been a restaurant since 1996. I believe it used to be called Shortstop Burgers, and then Julio's had taken it over. As mentioned, it is in a commercial corridor. We did some research too. The 2 cases we found was a special use and another conditional use back in the early 2000s for commercial development. Both staff reports talked about the same thing. You've already got a mixed-use area. Why? The previous industrial zoning already allowed some commercial activity, and so really it's in a commercial corridor as it stands. The proposal would comply with all the zoning and development standards in the ML zoning. It's also, as mentioned, compatible with the surrounding area. You do have the existing Chicken Express restaurant already to the south, so there's a restaurant there as well as other commercial uses. We don't perceive any effects on the natural environment. The site's already been graded and paved. The community need, the applicant could, if wants to provide any more information, but my understanding is a lot of the customers in the surrounding area, particularly in the industrial area, will use Julio's and go there for lunch. Also, if people are shopping in the area, they may want to stop by. This is convenient. Development patterns, the new platted lot would essentially recognize the existing site, avoid having essentially one lot with 2 different uses on it. Airgas would now be separated to the north, and then Julio's would have its own site. So the cars would enter from 29th. 29th is an arterial road, and so is North Bryant. So there's lots of possibilities there for entry and exit. Staff recommendation is to approve CU 1607 for a conditional use to allow for retail sales and service restaurant as outlined in Section 315H in the light manufacturing zoning district, subject to the 5 conditions of approval in your staff report. I can read those off if you like.
I think we're good. All right, any questions for Jeff? No, sir. Any public comment?
Good morning. My name is Louis Blanick. I'm one of the partners of the San Angelo Bingo Partnership, and I'm also the general contractor to build the new building. So basically, the intent here is just simply to build a building that we can put people inside rather than them standing around in the parking lot burning up like it's with all the heat we've had the last several weeks. So that's we're moving that building off to another location, and then we'll be starting the new building if we're approved here. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Any other public comment? All right, there being none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Joe made the Ryan seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 6-0. All right. Okay, we're moving down to the expansion of non-conforming uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. ANCU 16-02 Republic Services, public hearing and consideration of a request for an expansion of a non-conforming use of sanitary landfill as defined in Section 609 of the zoning ordinance of the Ranch and Estate Zoning District, located approximately .36 miles northeast of the intersection of Ode Ballinger Highway and Paul Ann Boulevard on 4.9720 acres. And I believe that Joe has asked to be excused since that's his employer. Thank you, Joe.
Again, for the record, I'm Senior Planner David Fee. Here we have the case of the non-conforming use expansion 1602 of Republic Services. It's on 4.972 acres located at 3002 Old Ballinger Highway and single-member district number 4 with Lucy Gonzalez in the Paul Ann neighborhood. On the right, we have the aerial view of the subject property. And here we have the future land use map indicating that the area is in the industrial future land use all the way around the property. And here we see that the existing zoning is ranch and estate in the property and the surrounding area. And here we have a bird's eye view looking west. So you have to invert the map somewhat by 90 degrees. To the north here is the landfill area up in here. To the south here is the Old Ballinger Highway. And to the south there's a couple of residential homes in that area. And here are some site photos. As you're looking north, you see here's the scale house that's to be expanded. As you're looking north, you can see the landfill berm in the background there. As you look south, you see that it's flattened out and it's headed toward the highway. Looking east, you see that there's some other accessory buildings behind the scale house. And looking west, you see once again you've got the berm of the landfill. Okay, here's a site plan and elevation view. If you notice, the scale house is quite a distance from not only from Old Ballinger Highway, but also from the Texas Pacifico Railroad that runs parallel to the highway, which makes it a larger buffer. And here's on the right side, there's the elevation view of the scale house. And here, in this case, there were 6 notices that were mailed out within a 200-foot radius, and there were 0 responses in favor and 0 responses in opposition. The rationale is as follows, that the impacts have been minimized. You've got a landfill on 3 sides of the property. You've got a rail line, as indicated to the south that I mentioned before, that makes a 180-foot buffer to the street and rail line combined, make a 180-foot buffer to the residential properties to the south. The new scale house is being built basically on the same footprint as the old one, so there's very little change there. And that the landfill is screened by a rather high berm around it. 2, it's compatible with the surrounding uses. The landfill is the major use there and has been for quite some time. And the comprehensive plan envisions the area as being industrial, and of course the landfill is a waste-related use and categorized as an industrial use in our zoning ordinance. 3, the effect on the natural environment. The landfill was there before it was annexed by the city in 2011, and the city also owns the abutting tracts around the subject property, and those are for the purpose of expanding the landfill in the future. And 4, the community need. The landfill is a necessary function of any city of any size. You need to have some place to place your garbage. If not, it becomes an unlivable community. And the proposed expanded scale house improves the landfill operations with additional floor area for the office, because they pointed out that it's rather difficult to work there under those conditions because it's rather a small scale house. And 5, development patterns. The city owns, again, the abutting tracts around the property. And the highway itself, Old Ballinger Highway, is a minor arterial street under our major thoroughfare plan, and it can accommodate quite a bit of traffic, and there doesn't appear to be a lot. When I looked at it again, it's around 800 or 900 vehicles is the average annual daily traffic on that road, which is below capacity. And the staff recommendation is for approval of case NCU 1602 for the expansion of a non-conforming use, a sanitary landfill, as defined in the section 609 of the zoning ordinance in the ranch and estate zoning district, subject to one condition of approval. There it is. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions or comments?
Any questions? No, sir. Good job. Any public comment? All right, there being none. Sammy
second.
made the motion, Mark seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that'll be 5-0.
Somebody needs to tell Joe that we.
Would you let Joe know he can come back? All right, the next thing we have is a text amendment. City Council has final authority for approval of text amendments. Sign ordinance, text amendment, discussion and possible action regarding a text amendment to Chapter 12, Article 12.04, signs for portable signage.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. We were approached some months ago from a citizen with some questions about the portable sign ordinance, along with a request to make some changes to that section of the ordinance. And so that's what we're bringing before you today. As we looked at it and researched it, we felt comfortable bringing forward this fairly minor amendment. Basically, the change is under portable signs, Section H, where it prohibits the use of a portable sign for off-site advertising. So in front of my business, I can't put a portable sign out there advertising for something, for some other business, or with an exception for public service announcements, and this would add advertising for an off-site special event. The interpretation of this section of the ordinance in the past has allowed, as a public service announcement, announcements for nonprofit organization events. The subject in this case is the Just Between Friends event, and Just Between Friends is not technically a nonprofit organization, and as such, they were denied permits for portable signs on a sponsor business that was sponsoring their event. So again, this would just expand that use of portable signs very narrowly to allow advertising of these off-site special events. We've defined, because we use the term special event, we thought it was important to define it. We defined it as an event lasting no more than 2 weeks. So a weekend event, some sort of thing like that. We think this, although we don't think that something like the rodeo would fall under this, there's some other exceptions that apply to something like the rodeo. The first thing we looked at was maybe a weekend, 3 days, 4 days. We went ahead and thought, well, 2 weeks should encompass any sort of special event that we could think of. Again, staff is recommending approval of this. Let me mention one other thing before we open it to questions. As part of this request, we looked at the entirety of the portable sign section of the ordinance. We anticipated bringing you a broader set of recommended changes to that section. We just couldn't get that done in time to bring this to you today. The reason this is coming to you now is some time constraints for that particular event that brought this up. And so we didn't want to delay them, but just wanted to give you that heads up and see if you all had any thoughts or comments on our portable sign regulations. I know I'm kind of springing this on you and haven't given you a summary of what's in there today, but I'll just let you know some of the things we're looking at. We will be looking at this on-premise versus off-premise distinction and whether it's necessary. We have had a number of requests from businesses As an example, there was a hotel that wanted to advertise for their hotel, and they were about a half block off of the main street. And they wanted to put a portable sign in the business that's basically in front of them to advertise, hey, there's a hotel back behind here. Again, under this current ordinance, we can't allow that because of that off-premise restriction. The other things we want to look at is the time limits. As we've compared with our peer cities, most of them have a stricter time limitation on how long a portable sign can be in front of a business. We limit that to basically half the year, 180 days. And so one of the things we want to bring back to you is at least considering, is that the right amount of time? So anyway, just food for thought. If you have any comments today, that's great. But really, I just wanted to give you the heads up that we'll be looking at more portable sign changes for your consideration sometime in the next few months. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Wouldn't 3 weeks cover your rodeo?
Well, again, the rodeo has its own special regulations, so this wouldn't apply to them anyway. But we were trying to think of other events like that, and at least we couldn't come up with any that go past 2 weeks. If you all wanted to recommend changing this to 3 weeks, I don't think we would have a huge concern
You're
about
seeing
that.
a lot of portable signs now.
Yeah.
You do. You see them. Yeah, you do. I mean, a lot
They're
more than I think
effective.
we had previously.
Yeah. They work. I mean, they
Yeah.
work for the people that use them.
Right.
And that's one of the concerns. One of the things that we've looked at is some spacing limitations. For example, there's no prohibition now on putting a portable sign right next to another portable sign. And so there's a potential for, if the business next door puts a portable sign in a place that blocks my portable sign, that can be a problem. And so requiring that they be spaced some distance apart is one of the things that we'll be
You're just
looking
kind of
at.
working on that in the future to come back with those kind of
Yes.
things? Okay,
Yes.
so all we're talking about today is just basically this part of it.
Just this one minor change. That's all we're
Advertising
looking
for-
at
okay.
today. You're right.
All right, any other questions? All right, any public comment? Okay, there being none, do I?
Motion to approve.
Ryan made a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Sammy seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
You're opposed? Okay, so we're gonna
Yeah.
go 5-1 on that. Okay, director's report.
This will be my last reminder about the upcoming training session. We do have, we've heard from one of you signed up to attend this training. Again, it's Friday, August 26th. It will be in Midland. It's the State Planning Association has scheduled a training session primarily for planning commissioners, but we're also inviting Zoning Board of Adjustment as well as City Council members to learn more about planning.
Will there be another one that we can attend? This was not a good week, that was not a good day for me.
There may be. It might depend on attendance. So
Okay.
this is the first one they've held in West Texas. So we're hoping for enough of an attendance that they will
Okay.
come back to us in a future year. I'll mention there's also the option of the State Planning Conference, which is coming up in November. That's actually a 2-day event on a Thursday and a Friday. I don't actually have those dates, but I think it's November 3rd and 4th or 4th and 5th, something like that.
Can we still do our training online if not? Aren't we supposed to all do something
Well,
once a
the
year?
online training is for open meetings through the
Okay.
Attorney General's website. This is more specific to basically planning in Texas and what the laws are for planning, some of the goals and what kinds of things you should be thinking of as a planning commissioner. So basically kind of a day-long orientation to planning in Texas and what your role is as a commissioner or another elected or appointed official.
Okay.
Yeah, it is November 3rd and 4th.
Very
So
good.
if you're interested in that, again, that's a 2-day, a Thursday and a Friday. If anyone is interested in that,
Where will that be at?
that is in San Antonio.
In San Antonio.
And so we do have some funds available that the city council set aside specifically for board and commission training. So if anyone's interested, we are able to pay for the hotel room and the registration for that event.
Try to get back with him and let him know what's good for each of you.
For those that have indicated they will be attending, I'll be registering everybody today, and we'll be forwarding you your ticket and all that information accordingly.
To this one or to the one?
To the one right now that's coming up
Yeah.
in August.
Okay.
So that's the one I'm going to forward to everybody. We have reserved two cars, so we'll be providing transportation. The tutorial itself, we'll be providing lunch. So we'll be covering all of that for everyone.
And again, it's not too late, so if you haven't let us know yet, if you let us know in the next day or two, we can still get you signed up. And for the November training, there is plenty of time. Just let us know in the next month or so.
Very good. Future meeting agenda and announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is tentatively scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, September the 19th in council chambers. It is 9:52. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Ryan, and a second.
Second.
Travis seconded. All in favor, say aye. And that was a 6-0. Thank y'all.